Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today I'm with a very special guest. This man really opened my eyes to a lot of Chicago artists back in the day. And whenever I get the chance, I like to have Chicago artists on the show. I've had Femdot on, Xavier. I've had quite a few. I've connected with Lyrical Lemonade too. And to see that you've been highlighted by Lyrical Lemonade and just you're continuing to make music. There's just so many artists that like I felt inspired by that have stopped. So for you to listen to your interviews and see how you've evolved, and you've also were part of closed sessions. And I've had Boathouse on my. Do you know
Oh
Boathouse?
yeah, yeah. Of
Yeah, I've
course,
had
that's my man.
Boathouse on the show. So it's cool to talk more to another Chicago-based artist. It's my pleasure to have on Odd Couple.
You. Thank you for having me. Peace to the
Of
fan,
course.
peace to the fan base, the viewership, the listenership. The odd man is in the building. What's up?
Hell yeah, dude! I love your setup. Is this like your studio setup in the background, or what's
Oh
what's going
man,
on?
this is the attic. This is Bad Man had the Bat Cave. This is the attic. It's my attic where I get all of my top secret missions done and all my city saving endeavors. You know what I mean?
It's amazing, man. You
Yeah.
got the whole podcast set up too. So this is
Yeah, no,
great.
I'm happy you said that. Quick segue, quick plug. I got my very own podcast that I do with a very poppin' sommelier from the city named Derek C. Westbrook. Our podcast is called Samples and Samples. Our very first episode drops next Monday, November 13th,
Ooh.
at 9 a.m. on wherever you listen to them, and on YouTube if you want to go ahead and watch it. We film it up here. We record it up here. I mix master and engineer all that. So and I'm co-host. We have a good time. So
You're a
I'm excited to get
powerhouse.
into it. Yeah.
Dang. So you're a wine connoisseur?
Kind of, sorta. I am a wine explorer. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I am down to go on any trip involving wine, whether that be a conversation, an actual physical trip, or if that just be some type of experience. And so one of my good friends, who I've been kicking it with and working with for a few years now, he is a super poppin', fake famous, actually maybe kind of sort of famous ass like sommelier. And so he and I have just been doing stuff for a long time, different programs. I would DJ for him, and we started doing this program called Samples and Samples. He would bring wine, and I would bring some music, and we would put it together for a little show for the fans.
Wow.
And then we started to get some legs with it, and next thing I know, um, like we're selling out a city winery show, and I'm like, hey man, we need to sit down and actually like make this thing happen. And so we sat down and we just started talking and talking and talking, and we turned on the mics, and then we upgraded the mics, and then we're like, let's video record this, and we did that, and sure enough, we ended up with what I thought was a really good pilot. Then we called one of our other actually famous homies, and we were like, hey, do you want to come talk on our podcast and give us a chance? And he did, and it was great. And so that's our first episode coming out on Monday.
Oh shit! Can we know who the guest was?
Yeah, it's he is a really dope actor, poet, comedian. His name is Leroyce Hawkins. You can catch him on
Okay.
all different types of programming. He's got show on HBO. I think he's on either the Shy or South Side, one of the two shows coming from Chicago, on like the
Nice.
big streaming platforms. He's been on Chicago PD. He's been on a lot of different shows, a lot of different movies. Like he just been selling out shows on his own, like poetry comedy show called Poetry and Prose. He's been taking that nationwide. So Leroyce Hawkins, that's our first guest.
Dude, that's awesome. That's so cool when artists decide to make podcasts because I always bring this up, but it breaks the that Will Smith mindset where you don't want people to know who you are. I think
Yeah,
we're in a day and age where people do want to know who you are. Like especially because like one of my next guests literally like an hour after this is do you know who Coda the Friend is?
yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Coda's a huge fan. He's awesome.
He's coming to he's in town, so he's coming to the studio, and
That's great.
he last year, and this is not, I'm not trying to like air anything out. I just
Yeah,
feel like
no,
this is
you're
a
great.
full circle thing. So like last year he had like a crazy like accusation against him, and he was able to, which was cleared, which is amazing,
Good for
but
him.
he was able to go on his podcast, because he has a podcast, and talk about it and break it down. So
Yeah.
I think that's like important for artists to be able to express themselves in more than just one way. So I commend you for deciding to make a podcast.
No, I appreciate it. I think that's really true. I think now when anything can happen, it's good to have a space where you can tell your own story. For me, um, piggybacking even off of that, in a less like not so high stakes as that, but in a different way of like, excuse me, in a different way of like, yo, I make music, I produce music, I make instrumentals and beats, and I write lyrics and things like that. But my ideas come through more in melody and drums and feel and like the backdrop to what you're hearing. And so for me to get my you know, vision off, and for me to get my voice heard, and a lot of times for me to get my ideas out there, I need one of these. And I don't sing, I don't rap necessarily, right? I help people figure theirs out, and I help people express their ideas, and maybe I contribute some words here and there on it. And I have my albums where I can get these ideas across in the form of music, right? And through a longer piece, you can get to know me and get to understand what I'm saying. But that's not the same thing as understanding how I think about this or how I think about that, or what are the other things, other passions that I have, or other things that I'm super informed on. And also a huge circle of friends who have all different types of cool things that they're into. So how do I get to create with them, right? Like I'm a producer. I learned to step back and took a step back and learned I'm a producer. I'm not just a music producer. Like I produce stuff, events, like parties, like experiences, moments, tracks, beats, commercials, whatever, you know what I'm saying? So I've learned to just like, all right, take a step back and let's work on this pod thing. And, you know, and as I become a fan, and really the way you were talking about nerding out about it, I mean, I love to watch podcasts about podcasts, you know what I mean? Like, so I really like to get into the gears like that. So starting my own has been something I've been working on 5 or 6 years with a few different friends, but just wanting to find the right collaboration. And then me and Derek just been hanging out the whole time, and I realized every time we hung out was like some type of a podcast, and that's how I was like, man, this could be it. And so we're diving in.
Hell
You
yeah.
know what I mean? It's always a demo. It's always a demo for the next one. So we're diving in on this one.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. So I want to get into your background. You're not originally from Chicago. You're from Milwaukee, correct?
Yes, sir. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, still 414. The rest of the numbers you only know if you know.
And do you claim Chicago now, though, or how do you separate that?
I claim set, fool. No, I my Twitter bio says it all, man. I'm in Chicago. I'm from Milwaukee. I claim my heart resides in both. I have family in both. I started my new family here in Chicago. Just had a baby girl almost a year ago, like coming up on a year ago in like 2 weeks. Appreciate you. And her name is Margot Millie, right? Margot, Chicago, Millie, Milwaukee. So go Millie. So like, you know what I'm saying? I make sure to try to show love to both, because those are the two cities, the sister cities that raised me.
That's awesome, man. So how much time did you spend growing up in Milwaukee? Like, did you spend your whole childhood there, or how old were you when you moved? Cool.
I lived there till I was 19 or 18, right? And then I came down to Chicago for college. I went to DePaul, and then very quickly figured out like, oh, this is not for me. Like this is like this. It was like almost like an artificial taste on when I would do stuff and when I would go places, and the friendships that I was forging were just, they always felt like artificial, and it just like there was something more to be had, right? And so I made at the time in 2009, a very brave decision, it seemed like, but now it's like, oh, you don't like college, leave. So I made what seemed like a really brave decision. And at 20 years old, every decision you make is brave, right? You know what I'm saying? Sure. You're like, I'm about to go to the club with this fake ID. Brave. Like, you know what I mean? Like anything is brave. I'm about to head outside with $20 and see what it do. Brave. Like, so, and I know a couple 34-year-olds who get down like that too, so I ain't hating. But I'm just saying, like, that, you know, everything feels brave in those moments. So I made, you know, what I felt like was like a brave decision, but it's definitely like a tangent moment in your life. So I dropped out of college here in Chicago and decided to really officially, that was the moment I started to say like, oh no, now I live in Chicago, because then I had to
Mm.
make it as a Chicagoan. Like I had to get a job here and work with regular folks, take the bus, like deal with people who don't just live around the college campuses in the city. Like the college campuses in the city are all in the really nice areas, except for one or two. Like the rest of them, that most what you would think of, are in nice areas, especially DePaul, where I was going. So to be able to find connection to the people of Chicago, like, was that became like really prideful for me. You know what I mean? It almost became proud. It almost became like a sense of pride for me to damn near push whatever privilege I had accumulated through my youth away. I was
Hmm.
like, nah, I don't want that, because I want to live a real life. And at the time I was like, I'm willing to take whatever comes with that. And it's definitely been harder in some respects, but as I've, gone to therapy, and as I've achieved new heights, and kind of, you can never right your wrongs, but as I kind of made amends with myself, was able to like forgive myself for like taking this choice versus that one, because I just let time and things figure themselves out, and you realize you can't get to where you're at without where you've come, you know what I mean, and what
Right.
you've gone through. So I was, to this day, I always consider that one of the best decisions I ever made in my life,
Hell
because
yeah.
like I just literally decided to go out into the city and literally just head west from where I was living. I was like, I'm just going to head west. I hear it's crazy out there, but like, it's calling me. You know what I mean? Like Lil
Mhm.
Jon, they calling me. So
Yeah.
I just started to head west, and downloaded, paid for the real version of FL Studio, stopped using the trial, and was like, we're really about to do this, bro. You're doing this.
That's wild because I feel like I think about that, and I'm happy you said that because you go to a college in a certain city or state doesn't mean you actually know the people or the culture of that place. So
It's
for
the
you to actually
opposite.
take, yeah, it's very, yeah, it's a very isolated like bubble thing, and like there's like literal college towns that are built for that college, so you don't have to leave that area.
100%. Like it's like they pop them up, like, and it's funny, like you realize it. You obviously, you don't, just like many things, you don't realize until you leave. But
Mm-hmm.
now, I still play basketball. Like I have like an alumni membership there. Don't ask. Um, so I still get to play basketball there for super cheap, and so I go there like all the time to hoop, and it's so funny because that same energy that I felt then, that same like, I often have to like meditate to myself. I'm like, don't wig out, don't wig out, because the same energy of like almost like forced integration almost, you know what I mean? It's like a
Mm-hmm.
weird situation where they like drop a dome on this area in town, and they're like, all right, everybody here, like, your academics and blah blah blah, and it's just like you're separated from anything else that's going outside in the city or damn near in this world, because you're in this little bubble, and it's artificial, it's not real, you know what I mean? In high school, when you're younger, like, it's at least a little bit more real, because there's a defined set of walls, right? You're in a
Right.
building, there's a set of walls. College, it's artificial, and I just realized it was artificial, and I was like, I have to get outside of this. And yeah, your mind
Damn.
blows, and you're like, oh man, like, these aren't Chicago restaurants. These are DePaul restaurants, or whatever school you go to. You know what I'm saying? Like, these
Yeah.
aren't Marquette restaurants, or these aren't Milwaukee restaurants. These are Marquette restaurants. Oh, this is Milwaukee. This is the food. Oh, okay. Now I see why people are so proud to
Damn.
be from here. And that's how I felt about Chicago. I realized why people were so proud to be from here. It's not because, the 1 mile radius from the lake. It's because of
Yeah.
what's going on out there, what's going on out here, what you got to get through.
Yeah. Dang, that's wild. What did you go to college for at the time though?
Good question. Um, uh, let's see. First it was computer science. Then it became e-commerce tech. Then it became interactive media, and then it became a bill.
Dang.
So I went to college for debt, is what I went to college for.
Did you
Debt and homies.
did you feel like pressured to go to college or something, or
Oh yeah,
what was your si-
100%.
Oh wow.
My family was um so even farther in my however you want to look at my villain origin story or how the hero was made. Um so like I had we lived in a really like nice neighborhood, but my family like really mortgaged a lot of things to get to that neighborhood, right? So we're living
Mhm,
check to check in a nice neighborhood so that me and my brother can go through the school system.
mhm,
Some things happen through life, a lot of things go down, and so my dad starts to deal with some mental health issues, and he starts to drink, and he starts to drink to cope with it. And long story short, by the time I was 10, my dad's a full blown alcoholic, and I understand completely what that disease is all about. I know way too much about alcoholism at 10 years
yeah.
old. By 12 years old, Christmas Day, my dad passes away. So
Mm,
from complications from what was going on. So in that moment, my mom made before that moment, now that I talk to her now, this is 20 years ago. I talked to her now. And in that moment, before that moment, sometime between when I was 10 and 12, which are why those years are so important, she decided, all right, it's going to have to be all on me
mm,
because this is going to go one way. And so the decision was, yo, I only know what I know, and I know you got to get it. You got to get an education, or you got to go to the army because I don't know anything else. And she's a widow. She's raising me. My brother's now 20 years old. He's got his own thing going on. He can kick a couple bucks back, but other than that, he's got to live his life. And I wanted that for him. You know what I mean? I'm 13, 12, 13, 14. Still, I'm like, dude, I don't want another dad. I had a dad. He passed away. It's all good. We'll figure this out, but just do your thing, be my brother. And so as we're figuring this out, the communications get so tense and tight and things get really hard to figure out. So yeah, college was you have to go because it's either this or the army or I don't those are your only choices. You're going to be nobody in life. I don't know anything. We're all grieving here. Just do it. You know what I mean? And so I do it, but in my mind, you know, sophomore year, junior year, senior year of college, every single day I'm finding a new artist from Chicago that I love, memorizing every single track, like Kids in the Hall, obviously Kanye, Common, Lupe, like anybody can. Then I'm stepping out. I'm like, oh, okay, let me learn this Little Brother. Let me learn this. Let me learn this. Let me learn this. Any backpack rap I can get my hands on because I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work out for me, but like this is school in Chicago is my ticket.
mm,
And I thought that, as we all do, we got to make it before we turn a certain age, right? And so school's my ticket. And so I'm using school to meet people. I'm using school to meet people. And I finally realized, hey, I gotta get this shit cracking. So I make the brave decision to drop out of college. And so it was really, really tumultuous between me and my family. But as I started to mature more as a man, as I could stand on my own too, as I could really own the decision and own the decision to them. And it took a long time in me, and it took a long time for me to be completely honest with them. It took a long time for me to be completely honest with myself that this was potentially in the short term a dumbass move.
mm.
Like, but in the long term, this may be a great move because everything that I'm learning will be invaluable. You know what I mean? And so I think that those pressure makes diamonds. And so
Yeah.
that pressurized situation allowed for me to look back or allowed for me now 20 years later to look back and understand everything that was happening with a completely clear perspective, but also in my own studio, with my daughter's nursery downstairs and my girl's out visiting her mom today or doing some other stuff, but she'll be back. And, my mom is healthy. My brother has two beautiful boys. They live on the West Coast. Life is beautiful. We'll see them in a couple weeks. Like everything went the exact way that it went. But those decisions, you know what I mean? Those decisions to stand on my own and do what I had to do in that moment is something like I will always feel good about
Yeah,
because I
dang,
know
that's
what I knew what it had
crazy.
to set up.
I feel like we almost had similar paths, but like depending on like where we were both located, we chose different things in the outcome. Like so, like I can say this now that I was like one of the few black families where I grew up in the east side of Seattle, and my family each like my extent like friends and people like that in school didn't know like my family each had like my stepmom and my dad had like 5 or 6 jobs each just to like say they stayed where
Yeah.
we stayed, and like alcoholism ran in my family too, and I was kind of pressured into being like, you're gonna go to college. Like my family like had even decided, not decided in the point where they were gonna put any money down, but they had decided what college that had to like apply for and all this, right? Even though
Yeah.
I had no idea what I wanted to go to college for. And I can look back now and say, for me at least, it was the right decision. But like, I moved out of my house when I was still in high school, and I had to like separate myself from my family, and that
Yeah.
was my freeing experience to focus, and like one of my first moments of being like, I can live for myself, And with that, I didn't go to college, and because I was thinking about going to community college, and like I met all my professors that I was gonna if I was gonna go to college, but I decided not to. So like if I could say I went for like 30 minutes, but I never actually took a class or anything like that. But it's interesting. Like it could take people decades to figure out what decisions their decision versus like the decision from like society that pushes on you. So I can relate to that a lot though. Like like living in a nice neighborhood, having maybe family issues, but still loving your family,
Of
and then the
course.
pressures of what your family wants you to be, and then you might be confused on what you wanted to actually do. So I think it seems like it turned out well for you in the end, but it's interesting to see that I was able to stop with some sacrifices, of course, like me losing some of my family. I became closer with other family members, but there's definitely sacrifices either way you go, because you
There's
probably, even if you stayed in college just for a little bit, you probably learned some things that I don't know, like how to connect with certain people, because I never actually went to college.
No, 100%. I think that's super true. I think there's benefits, and there's drawbacks to everything, to every decision that we make, right? And so I think that's something I really um come to be at peace with, right? And I think like one thing that I've really started to focus on, and I have a lot of mantras and reflections and things that I like um remind myself of daily, like in different things that I've realized. I'm like, okay, that needs to be written down somewhere so you can revisit that when you need to, whenever you need to. And one of those things is that the vehicle changes the direction, like you hone your direction so the direction gets tighter, but the drive stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
So the driving force has been exploration, and for me to um simply just like it's the words on the tip of my tongue, but it's to explore, and it's to exude, and it's to just like, oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue, but it's literally just to be out here and to express. There it is.
Right.
It's for expression and exploration, right? And so that's always been the driving force for me, is to express how I feel and to explore things out there that will help me feel better about stuff, right? I'm someone who's always been super open about my depression. If you hear anything about the last 15 minutes we talking about, you probably already hip to that. So like, I'm it's always been about the exploration and then the expression, and 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 what I found through being in college was, all right, there's spaces where I can explore, and there's ways to explore, and there's ways to express myself here that I love, and that I can always find a way back to, because I have a certain set of skills. I'm confident in those. I know that I'll consistently continue to build those because I'm naturally curious, and I like to learn, and I like to push myself, and I'm a read, and I'm going to always want to do that because it's something I just enjoy doing. But
Mm-hmm.
this other real world knowledge, that's what I need, right? And so I pushed myself into that, and and the driving force, I thought earlier, I said, Chicago's my ticket. That ended up being, I thought it was the drive. Nah, it's a vehicle. You know what I mean? It's a vehicle. It's the place that I reside. It's just another way. It's a place that I found where I can express myself, and I found more people that I can express myself with, and I can find more people that I can explore this world with. And then from there, I've met homies and people from across the world who I consider damn near family. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what, challenging yourself to be in those spaces, but then also challenging yourself to like not stick with the status quo has been so important for me, right? The ability to go to college and not want to, but be like, I'm going to try this out. I'm also going to have the balls to not do this anymore if I don't want to. That's something that, like, I have friends who have families who have everything in life, but that's something that they still struggle with, is when you got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them, you got to know when to walk away, and they still have trouble with that. And it's something that I'm always grateful of. That's like, man, I didn't even mean for that to be muscle memory, but you don't know it won't become that until you try it. You know what I mean? You won't have the balls to gamble. You also won't have the balls to walk away when it's time, until you actually try it. Some people stick with things forever and it's toxic for them. So I'm really happy and really proud of those decisions, because, music, what I walked away from and walked towards was the rest of my life. You know what I mean? I walked towards the rest of my life. I found a community. I found a voice, right? Voices here, podcasting, music, the wine shows, the different things, the shit. Got to introduce my mama to Oprah and work on content for her for years. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, helping the multiverse of my mamas. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it was decisions like that, that I look back on. I'm like, all right, I have to maintain the spirit of that. The spirit of that. I might be a 10 times more responsible person now, I hope. But the spirit of that dropout energy is still inside. I still try to use that when I can.
I can also relate to, from my understanding, when you first started oddCouple, you were like a duo, and I remember
I ate the other dude. Meiosis. It was two, and just
there we go. And when I first started the podcast, I had a podcast partner too, and it wasn't that they were even actually like on the show or helped book guests or anything. Is more like I needed, for me at least, to start any creative process, I needed someone to be there with me, because I was afraid of trying something on my own, especially like straight out of like school, right? And just similar to you, it was a white guy, and fucking white guys, am I right?
Hey, man.
But it we parted ways, and I was able to continue to focus on my craft, and now, like 4 years later, I'm in my own studio. I'm able to express myself with my Mickey Mouse phone and my Keith Haring pictures and everything. It's funny, I actually have a wine. You can't really see it in the corner. I have a wine picture right here.
I can see just a little glass up in the corner.
Yeah, but what was your experience? Like, how would you describe your experience when you broke apart from being a duo and focused on it on your own? Was that scary for you? Was it freeing? For me, it was a mixture of both.
Yeah, no, I think that's a mixture of both. Is, in short, that's a way to put it, right? I think that it's that was maybe 2 years after I dropped out of college, and so in that time now, I am not the only reason, but one of the main reasons I was comfortable with that decision is because I started to develop a community of people who would accept it. Right. One of the reasons it was the acceptance was hard. And that's a lot of the catalyst for a lot of us to do a lot of things that we do. Right. Especially when we're younger, is acceptance, either for it or because of a lack of it, or both. Right. They move in tandem. And so I had this community who I learned would accept me without perfection, what I thought was perfection, right? That polish. And so this, my old partner was one of those people. And so um I really gravitated towards that. And I really probably was a bit naive in terms of how things would go, right? And so I think in learning and in realizing, like, at first it was, oh, like, damn, just another person who's letting me down. Then it became like, oh, you got some real shit going on as to why you let me down. We might not even be needing to be like cooking together like that anyways, because this might just our lifestyles might not even match up like that. And then um and then you start to realize, you're like, oh man, like, the abandonment starts to kick in, right? It's like, oh, it's me. Like, this person left, this person left, it didn't work with them, it didn't work with them, it's got to be me. And then at that same moment, yet again, it's still tumultuous with me and my family in terms of what I'm doing versus what they think I should be doing, and what direction I'm heading and all this. And so um I'm still torn between, like, now my partner is, kind of MIA, and like stuff's really not going. We're not on the same page. Sometimes stuff's coming out, it's under his name. Sometimes it comes out, it's under oddCouple. Sometimes it's beats I made and it's like says it's by him. It's really messy shit. You know what I mean? And so and and so I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And I have a close friend, and he texts me and he's like, man, you know what? Like, you can do whatever you want to do. You can listen to your old partner. You can listen to your mom. You can listen to your brother. You can listen to me. You don't need to listen to me. You don't need to listen to anybody. All I know is you are odd couple. You built this thing up. We all love you and support you. And whatever you want to do, keep putting your music out into the world. I'll be your best friend. He's my best friend. He's like, I'll be your best friend no matter what you do. But I'll always feel a little disappointed if you don't keep trying. And the craziest thing is, one of his best friends, who's a really good, like, one of his best friends from home, who I'd met through him, right? So I just met this other guy through my boy, like, a couple years before that. We knew each other, but we didn't know each other for be like, he texted me the exact same thing. They weren't together. They were One was back home, one was in the city. I was out at my mom's crib, and he's like, man, sent me the exact same text message, damn near like
Mm.
almost the same amount of sentences. And it was just like, holy shit. All right. All right. All right. Two is better than one. I'm a simple man. Logic wins. Like, I'm gonna keep trying. And that text message of like, man, you are odd couple. You care about this. You've been working on this. You've been branding this and figured out the name. Like, you did all of this stuff, man. Like, you've been bringing this across the finish line. And so that empowered me to shoot my shot and see if the world would accept one guy named Odd Couple. And
Yeah.
the thesis went from the idea of Odd Couple went from two people from two different worlds mashed together, little white guy, big black guy. No, we're gonna flip that. It's now one person with this internal struggle of this versus that, and that's now the story, right? And so that's now the
Yeah.
character. And so, like, in that, like, meta sense, that's what it became. And so that's that whole world of, will I or won't I, do I or don't I have this but I want that, I'm from here but they love me over there. All of that just became the character and their persona, I suppose, you know what I mean? But that's it. All also is
Yeah.
me, so it's just me turned up a little bit.
Dang, I agree with that too, man. I relate with that too. Like, so before um, I started doing the podcast on my own, I just went by Blake, and then it evolved to like I am NAST. I am NAST, and my podcast is NAST Podcast, and that was
Yeah.
part of the leap of breaking out to be just on my own. So yeah, you grow. Sometimes you grow into the name yourself.
No,
So
100%. I
that's
mean, it's
wow.
like, I don't know if you're watching Loki on Disney Plus, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Disney cut the check. Um but like the whole story of this show, and like right now, is just time. It's the timelines, and it's the time loop, and what's the
mm,
beginning versus what's the end, and what actually started what. And if time moves in a circle, the end is what comes right before the beginning, right? Because
mm-hmm.
it's the circle. And so it's like, you're you can be the catalyst, you know what I mean? You can be the catalyst for your own inception in so many ways. And so it's like for me, the taking the leap of choosing this name based on something that now I don't even you have to remind me, people have to remind me that that's where it started, because I think of the beginning as something completely different now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's because I feel like I've lived so many lives from that moment. But it's so full circle, because the way that I got to become Odd Couple as one is like it's the very thing that, right, like I'm faced with that all the time now, which is like,
Hmm.
how much do I want to collaborate? How much do I want to sacrifice? Do I want to, do I need someone else to explore this world? Do I need other people to explore this or express this, and choosing the right moments and all these different choices that I'm at now? Like, this is the exact same thing I was dealing with in the very beginning. So it never changes in that regard, you know?
Yeah, man. And so I found you through, well, I guess it goes back to Chance the Rapper, actually. When Chance dropped Acid Rap, it was like super popular, and so I didn't listen to it at all. And, and I was like, I'm not going to be part. I've heard of this guy's name, but I'm not going to check it out because everyone's listening to it. But then, like a year or two after that album came out, or mixtape came out, SZA came out with, I think, Z was
Yep.
the name of the album, and he was featured on that. So
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to SZA before I even listened to Chance, and then
He
I
was
was
on
so
The Way. No, that was Kaylani. I know. Yeah, I remember what song
which
it
I
was.
forget. Fuck, it was one of those like trippy, low, trippy beat. I forget the name of the song. It's like one of my favorite songs too. Damn it. Um, but he was featured on a song with SZA, and then that's how I actually got into listening to him. And then I liked that song a lot, but then I was still on the edge of listening to him. And then he came out this song with Lil Wayne on Dedication 5 called Favorite Song, or You Song?
You
You
song.
Song.
Yeah.
So basically the cosign from SZA and Lil Wayne was enough for me to get into Chance, and then I like took a deep dive on Chance, and then I learned that he had a brother, and then I started listening to his music, and then that led me to listening to your music, and then I was exposed to like at a super. It's funny because I'm pretty sure like you had like Alan Kingdom, you had Saba, you had all these artists
Yeah.
that like are just like super well known people now. Like Alan Kingdom was like people think of him because of All Day by Kanye.
Yeah.
But like you were working with him before that, you know?
Yeah,
So like
man.
it's crazy that like I could actually say like you helped introduce me to artists in the Chicago music scene.
Hey, I mean, yo, that's after a while, when I like really learned how to be a producer, I suppose, like when I just like had a couple of songs under my belt. Like, it was before Chatterbox, but it's just before
Mm.
when I started to have some records under my belt, and like felt like they were like pretty good. I could show them to people and they'd be like, this is dope. Like, where can I listen to this again? Um, I realized like, oh damn, like it's also my job to like pick the right person to be on records with, because part of the reason that those songs were getting done, and like getting good responses, because of the people who are who were using these beats, right? Like, the beats aren't just going to talk over everything else, even if in my mind they do, because I'm a freak like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So Chatterbox was like, it started off as like a blog mixtape for me and my buddy. We had a blog. um and we were interviewing a bunch of people for it, and like a lot of Chicago artists and stuff like that. And it started off, we wanted to do a mixtape, and it was based around this day that we had, just like an amazing day we had, which like things started off, they just flowed perfectly. We're like, man, we should do a tape about this. I was like, yeah,
Mm.
let's do that. And so that started off in bit of a tough like concept to like make a tape about, but we were naive and we thought we would. So, but what that was the essence of just like a full day of just expression. We got all our shit off. You know what I mean? We got to be silly. We got to talk to some girls. We got to do this. We got to like donate. We like helped like a homeless guy. We like helped a little lady across the street. We ended up at a party we didn't mean to. We ended up at a second party we didn't know was there. We left. We walked. Like, we did all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
Amazing day. Like, literally one thing an hour for like 20 hours. Um, but that essence, like, after, you know, what we were talking about before, was splitting up with my partner, and then the tumultuousness between me and my family, and the and just the unrest internally between like who I was supposed to be and who I was becoming, right? Um, I had a lot to say. And so that's what Chatterbox came from. And I was like, man, but I want to be smart about who's going to help me say what, right? I want to find people who are in the same space and train of thought as me, but
Mm.
um I but I also know this has to be good, man, because like
Right.
I can't I can't keep not at that moment. I really wanted to prove it to my family and my friends that I could do it, but in my mind I wanted to prove it to myself that I was good enough. That's
Right.
really what it was. I wanted to prove to myself that I was good enough. And what more would prove it if I didn't put myself up there with some of the best names that I could find and see if I could hang. And
Mm.
so sessions just started getting booked. I just started calling and I was like, yo, come to the studio. Like, I want to link with them. And they knew I had some decent beats. All right, come through. And we come to the session. I'm like, all right, I want to work on a song for my album. And I
Mm.
either knew that was going to be no, play me some beats, or okay. And
Mm.
like, this is your shot. You know what I mean? And if the album comes out bad, then this relationship might be sour. If the album comes out good, then this person might think I'm the shit.
Yeah.
And so, that's how a lot of songs came together from that project. A lot of just, hey, could you link me with this person who looks like they're about to blow up to me? You
Mm.
know? And when I look up and down that project, and even when I look up and down Liberation that came later, I'm like,
Mm.
damn, dude. And some of the songs that were gonna be on those projects, but ended up the artist bigger and made the smart decision to put those songs on their album or something like that across those two projects. Um, when I look at that like wave, I'm like, damn, you were right about a lot of people who are going to be next up, man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the song, like Morning Sex, a song I did for Joey Perp, one of my favorite.
Dude, that's one of my
What?
favorite songs.
Yeah, I
Dude,
appreciate you. I was
that's
gonna say it's hard for me to say it because I made that beat, but I promise that is one of my favorite rap songs I listened to.
dude, it's
It's one of my
hard
favorite
as
rap songs.
fuck. I love this song.
And it's
Oh my god.
yeah, I just I that's one of those ones I sometimes I'm like, I can't believe you made that. Cause like it's
That's
just
crazy.
it's like I listen to it in full. It's like it's an honor. Joey took flight, and it's just a beautiful piece of art. I'm really happy to be a part of that. But even that song was made all around the same time as Chatterbox and Liberation. Like
Right.
that song was gonna be on Chatterbox originally, and Joey's like, no, I need that. That was gonna be the
Dang.
intro on my album. It was gonna be called Morning Sex, and he was like, no, I need that. That's the intro on my shit. And he's right. It was it's to this day it's one of his most popular, biggest, like best
Mm.
crowd reaction songs. And so um yeah, I just those leaps of faith again, taking those leaps of faith and being like, no, this person is dope and is gonna be even bigger. I'm not
Yeah.
afraid to be early on this. You know what I mean? um it's like we talked about earlier with whether at school or branching out on my own and being one person instead of relying on a partnership. Like, you got to know when it's time to gamble, and you got to know when
Mm.
it's time to walk away, and sometimes those are the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes those are the same thing. And so for me, the gamble was putting that project together, but the even bigger gamble sometimes was attempting to put it together with some of those names, right? Because it could have
Mm.
been egg on my face. Probably don't talk to him again. You know what I mean? Like, I approached
Mm.
Chance about that project, and one of the tracks that was going to be on that ended up being a song with Jamila Woods, LSD, featuring Chance, one of our biggest
Mm.
records. You know what I mean? And so, like, yeah, that being floated out there is how that record ended up getting done later. You know what I mean? So it's really beautiful to some of those gambles to pay off. And when they start to pay off, you forget about the ones that don't. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
forget about the ones that don't. A couple good bets take care of the rest.
For sure. I don't know if you heard my ringtone. I turned it off, but my notification is Chance's ah.
Yeah.
That's so like so I'll be walking down the street and they'll be like ah, and then people will be like, what's that noise? But it was going off, so I had to like pause it. But yeah, that's crazy. You like it's crazy like how I'm. It's just a full circle moment. Like one of my for the studio, the first few guests are very like hand selected. So like for I've been wanting to have you on since almost a year ago now, back in
Yeah.
March. But like I think it's perfect timing to have had you on now. My next question for you is I want to talk about closed sessions as a definitely fast forward in life,
Yeah.
but what's it like as an artist being part of a label and then stepping away to be an independent?
Man, I think we are having a fantastically cohesive pod. This is all on the same topics of knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them, man. I think in that situation again, I was not afraid to be early on. I was not afraid to be looked at in the short term like you made a mistake, because I knew in the long term I had that faith and the foresight. You know what I mean? And so what I knew in those situations was I was developing a business sense. And direction, right? Again, the drive never changed. The direction got more focused, and the vehicle changed. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, I wanted, it started off vehicle was I just want to be in Chicago, make music in Chicago. Then it was I want to be one of the best in Chicago. Okay, whatever that means. Like that's very subjective and one of the best of what does that even mean? You know what I'm saying? That the goalposts on something like that are so ridiculously skewed depending on who you are, where you are, what day it is. Like it's an absurd, it's kind of an absurd like goal to have,
Mm-hmm.
because and then what? Even when
Yeah.
you are what, and then what? You know what I mean? So that can't be a goal, but we're young, we don't know shit. And so again, like that became it was like, all right, I want to do that. And then it became, you know what? Like I want to create like a legacy. This legacy. You know what I mean? I want to create this odd couple like legacy. I want started to look at myself like when I was, I sound old. So when I was young, no, we used to, like what we had was we go on people's Wikipedia pages, and that's how we knew what music we missed. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like I would go on someone's wiki and be like, "Oh, that's your discography. I ain't listened to that album yet. Let me go see if I can find that shit real quick." And so
Yeah.
like I just thought of myself in that sense of like, all right, I want to fill in these gaps. I want to fill in this full body thing. And I realized that one of the things that I had to do to reach the next level was to take more ownership and more control of what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to be in a situation where, and this isn't, strictly a closed session situation. It happened to me with closed sessions. This can happen to any artist with any situation. You just start to realize, um, hey, like I want to get there. And sometimes because a label or any bigger entity that you're working with, generally speaking, when you are a music maker, is a middleman towards you and the consumer, or you and the money from the consumer, something like that. You know what I'm saying? They're a middleman, and so I'm learning that if I want to get over there and I want to, get to what's over there, it's not just a straight line, because I have to go through someone. And not even that I have to, but the way things are set up, I might as well, because no matter what, like the structure of a deal, like this person's going to benefit whether I do it myself or whether not. So as I started to have a smarter business mind and make more connections, and people started to see the face and get to hang out with the homie, and they're like, oh, this guy's cool, like I want to look out for you. I realized that it was better for me to just start to make these connections directly rather than ask for a favor from a friend slash manager slash label head or whatever to connect me with this person. Hey, I want to get there. Like, can we make that happen? Why can't I just ask the person who's doing that? Well,
Right.
the nature of this situation, you can, but the way it all funnels back, they're going to be involved anyways. And you just start to realize, like, hey, I don't know if I like the way that this is set up. I think I understand a better setup for me. And so what I need to do is kind of pull a Barry Sanders, take two steps back, find a hole and go. And so like that's kind of what I did. Um and in that, we're adding in the other factor that this is a label run by two old white guys, right? And so uh at the time that I made this move, this is 2017, man. Like Charleston, Trump, pitchforks and all kinds of shit. Not Pitchfork the website, but the ones with the flames on them. All that shit's happening. You know what I mean? And so, I drop an album at the beginning or at the end of 26 or at the middle of 2016 with Jamila called Heaven. We drop a song called Very Black. My
Mm.
Liberation, my album at the end of the year is called Liberation. So we come on 2017 like say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. I'm not the internal struggle with my blackness or anything like that is gone now at this point.
Mm.
So now also I really don't feel like asking for favors from two white guys to get me to get places that's better for me and therefore them, because guess what? I now understand the infrastructure of this completely. Like
Right.
I get us somewhere. We all benefit. You guys have the same situation with a few other artists. Therefore, you benefit. But at the end of the
For sure.
day, I need to be starting to worry more about myself rather than the whole pot. The whole pot will be great if I bring a ton to it. That's how I need to look at this. And I need to help my friends understand this more. And so as I realized that and stepped away, you know, conversations just started to happen, and other artists, it was so eye-opening, man. Other artists would
Mm.
come to me like I was Andy Dufresne and made it out of Shawshank. They're like, hey, how did you how'd you get out here? It's like, hey man, like I'll show you. It's
Yeah.
very simple. This is how I filed the hole. Also, this is why. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so like it became, I just started to feel much more empowered in the next step of my career. Not just because I had made a decision for myself and I knew I was going to be all right, but because like it was helping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt like it actually was helping, and it was helping for the greater good to bring more, um, allow for me to bring more of myself to the community, allow for me to do more things that with my intentions in mind. And so I felt a lot better about the things that I've created and the impact that they're having on the people around me since I've, had that independence, because I have more control over how everything's going to be seen. It's a lot more on my back, but damn if it don't feel good when the shit gets done.
For sure, man. Damn. Yeah. I feel like a lot of artists who leave labels have similar stories like that. Like there is a time and place. Like if you're like a Drake, maybe there's like a different conversation that's going on. But like if you want to be super like tapped into your community and control what you're doing, it seems like you can learn some things from a record label, just like you can learn some things from college.
Yep.
Those are all experiences that
That's the
should
best
lead you
way
to
to,
the next step.
that's a great way to put it. I'm gonna rap that like this. One of my favorite rappers of all time, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle.
Mm.
Dirty money get washed on royalty statements. Black owners in this game are powerful racists. And sometimes that's just as simple as it is. And it's really good to have your own shit because we need that. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to have that independence and that power and that control. And in a lot of senses, that's what's been missing.
For sure. Well, man, it's been fucking amazing talking to you, and I could talk to you for hours. So, but man, I have busy ass day, and this has been fucking. I'm so happy you've been on the show, man. Like,
Dude,
it's been great. You've been a very insightful guest. You're
likewise,
the
brother.
second guest on this round of the new studio. So, my final question, but I feel like you've been just dropping gems. But my final question would be, what is your advice for up and coming artists, creators, and influencers?
Man, my advice, never be afraid to take that leap out of something or into something. The last story I'll leave you with, I went to college at DePaul, right? I dropped out, didn't feel like I finished. One of the last people I met is a woman I had a baby with. It's a woman I live with. It's a woman I'm going to marry. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just know when you got enough out of a situation and that shit's going to be with you forever. You make sure to forge those bonds and forge those relationships with people, but never feel stuck in a situation because you have the control. You know what I mean? The drive is in you. The vehicle may change, and you can hone the destination. You can hone the direction.
100%. Is there anything you want to promote? Any singles coming out?
Man, you hear me talking, you hear me feeling, you hear me living, you know what I'm saying? Come see more, come feel more, come hear more on my podcast, Samples and Samples. That's youtube.com/samples and samples. You can find more information on my Instagram at oddCouple Music. Shout out to homie Blake. Gotta have you on the show. We gonna get nasty on Samples and Samples when you come through. Yes. I'll send you a bottle, or when you come to Shy, you can pull up to the crib. What's up?
Hell yeah. Fuck yeah. And what's the easiest way for people to find you again?
Yes, at oddCouple Music on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, everywhere.
Hell yeah. This has been the NAST podcast with,
oddCouple. Holla.
and we did it.